Hi, this is Jordan Dietz with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And our great verse for today is John 1:16, which reads, "Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given." And this is just such good news because I don't know about you, sometimes a single dose of grace is not enough. And when I read that there's a double dose of grace that God wants to give us through his son, Jesus Christ, I am incredibly encouraged. And I think a little context is necessary here for this passage. This is part of John 1, which is John talking about how Jesus was the Word, capital W, who became flesh and dwelt among us here on earth. There are a few verses I want to highlight throughout the passage that might help give a little more context as well. In verse 9, it says, "The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world." In verse 12, "Yet to all who did not receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." And in 14, it says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." And that leads back into our great verse for today, which is 16, "Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given." And as I talked about before, who doesn't want a double dose of grace? Who doesn't need a double dose of grace? This verse is speaking particularly about the law that was given in the Old Testament through Moses and how that actually was an act of grace itself, how God gave the law to the Israelites because he wanted to give them an opportunity to see how they measured up against his standard of holiness. And it becomes clear as you read through the Old Testament, especially the plight of the Israelites, that they don't measure up. They constantly fail. And I think it's important for us to recognize that we are in that same boat, that we fail and we get up and we try again and we fail. And ultimately, we're never going to be able to measure up to God's standard of holiness. However, he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to be that substitutionary sacrifice for us, so that when God looks at us and sees us, he sees his perfect son, Jesus, inside of us and washing us clean. And isn't that the greatest news you could ever hear? It's simple. The gospel is not a complicated message. God wants you to live in the freedom of the forgiveness that you have through his son, Jesus Christ. He wants you to have the grace upon the grace that you were given. And your only job is to accept that and to say, "Yes, Lord, I would love to receive the grace that you're giving me. Let me live in the freedom that you want to provide." And then out of that, he will give you opportunities and things that you can step into that will go beyond anything that you could do yourself. And you'll find yourself looking forward to the mission that God has you on each and every day. So I hope that's encouraging for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.